Center at the Atlantic Council. I'm delighted to welcome all of you for this final day of IMF World Bank programming at the Atlantic Council. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with the Geoeconomic Center throughout the week. Here at the Atlantic Council, we've hosted over 24 ministers over the course of the week. Today, we're shifting our attention to Central America and Guatemala in particular. And for that, I'm delighted to be joined by Minister of Economy, Gabriela Garcia. Welcome to the Atlantic Council.
Thank you.
I'm also pleased that we have here in our in-studio audience Ambassador-designate Hugo Beteta joining us today, as well as a member of our advisory council, former Secretary of Commerce, Carlos Gutierrez. As has been made abundantly clear by Iran's attacks on Israel on the eve of the IMF World Bank meetings, and then, of course, the events of last night, economics cannot be separated from geopolitics. For Guatemala and for our region, the current geopolitical context, marked by rising U.S.-China tensions and a desire to substitute supply chain efficiency with supply chain security, creates an economic opportunity, creates an opportunity of nearshoring. At the Atlantic Council, we recognized early on the potential of nearshoring and made it a pillar of the Adrian Arsht Latin America Center's work, working closely actually with Millicom Tigo in starting that effort. Whether it's through the creation of the Nearshoring Working Group, which is where we have members present in our studios today, or by hosting President Arevalo and you, Mr. Garcia, in a conference in Guatemala, actually on Valentine's Day. We seek to deepen economic ties between the U.S. and Central America with nearshoring as a key priority. We're doing so by working closely with the U.S. and Central American private sector, as well as working with the U.S. and Guatemalan governments and other relevant stakeholders, including the 15 members of our Nearshoring Working Group. Joining us in studios, I couldn't think of a better person to talk about the U.S.-Guatemala economic opportunities around nearshoring than, of course, Gabriela Garcia, the Minister of Economy of Guatemala. Minister Garcia has more than 25 years' experience working on development projects, both at the local and the regional level, and has served as Minister of Economy since the start of President Arevalo's administration a few months ago. She also knows the ins and outs of D.C. with a bachelor's and master's degree from American University in International Relations and Development Management, respectively, actually just a few minutes from my house. Mr. Garcia, we're thrilled to have you with us today. Mr. Garcia, in the Atlantic Council's Nearshoring Working Group, we focus not only on identifying challenges to attracting nearshoring investment, but I think even more important, on the potential, on potential recommendations and potential solutions to advance nearshoring. We think of three prongs. First, what can countries like Guatemala do to attract more investment? Second, what can the U.S. government do to incentivize said investment? And third, how can the public and private sector work together to achieve said goal? So following this line of thinking, I'd like to begin by asking you questions on those three prongs and how you see those. Beginning with the fact that President Arevalo has been very clear in his desire to make Guatemala a destination for nearshoring and for Guatemala to play an increasingly important role in global supply chains. What specific policies do you think Guatemala needs to implement to attract more investment from the United States? And how can Guatemala achieve that goal while making sure that such investment also spurs, importantly, inclusive and equitable economic growth? And again, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you all. And I'm glad and very proud to be here representing the government of Bernardo Arevalo and Karin Herrera. So regarding your first question, we are working now together with technical support from USAID, basically, to have this competition law. This is something that will set a good example and a good base on to give this security, not only for local companies, but for companies looking to invest in Guatemala. Securing that is fair competition is key. Together with that, we are working with some policies that will accompany all efforts of nearshoring, but also developing local companies, which is innovation policies and transformational of the way we produce things. We need to evolve in that, and more than just commerce, we want to create things in Guatemala. And with that, we move into these new opportunities, especially in the very little explored sector of electronics, electric and electronics, with Yasaki coming in Guatemala and gave us the opportunity to go into the auto parts business.
Yeah.
So this is a way of showing companies that are coming either on the nearshoring or just expanding in general, and that want to invest in the region to look at Guatemala as a way to come in with that particular industry that gives us space to work, for example, with companies that are in the plastic business. We didn't know about that. And so we are learning, and that's why it's so important, the innovation and productive transformation. As for pure nearshoring, we are very good at textiles. I think that has an energy that it's feeding itself, and it comes, we don't have to do much other than strengthen how we as a country provide the correct business climate so they continue to trust investing in us, but also we facilitate business for them. But we have a great partner in the private sector with Vestex.
Yeah.
And that is key, having a local partner, a local private partner that works with us government, and that's where the public partnership comes in. We cannot do this alone. We need the private sector to tell us where things are not working and where we as government need to sit down, identify not only processes, but just the broad spectrum of where we need to intervene to make sure that the business can grow.
Minister, you raised a number of important points in the competition law, investment, and innovation policy. Guatemala is a hub, right, for Central America, and also from the get-go, the first 3 months now of the Arevalo presidency, the importance of the business climate, right? And that has been a key message that the president has had, that you've had, other ministers have had, insofar as Guatemala as a reliable partner and a reliable investment destination. I'd like for you to elaborate a little bit more on how you see and how the administration sees the point you raised about Guatemala as a hub for investment in the region, because there is that really untapped opportunity still for business to come and set up shop in Guatemala and have that be as kind of an anchor in Central America. How do you see that playing out, and what are some of the policies of the administration to try to incentivize that?
We have to divide it probably in two big areas. One is the honest fight against corruption, and that entitles security issues that probably from the ministry we are not necessarily involved in the everyday, but just providing the certainty that the country is committed to do this fight against corruption. Because the moment that you have that established privately or in the public sector, it immediately affects the perception, and then I don't invest as a business. Yeah. Now, on the part of at least what we are doing in the Ministry of Economy and working together with the Minister of Finance is first processes. We need to digitalize everything, because that's a way of being transparent, making sure that everybody can have access to information and know where the process is to settle a company. It's something that sounds simple, but it's very complicated when you have many institutions in the public sector intervening to give you a permit for construction, for example. So that is one specific thing that we're working on. With the competition law and also taking care of consumers, we have on Ministry of Economy the Direction for Consumer Protection. That is also one of the things that we need to strengthen, because how we manage to control that, for example, prices are not going up crazy and affecting the private sector. So all of those little things contribute to a more scalable way of showing that we are moving forward. And I just learned that one of the Fitch or Moody's, I forgot.
The rating.
The rating
just
has
upgraded.
been improved. Exactly.
Yes,
That is a sign that there is trust in the policy of this new government.
I believe it was a full point, right?
Yes. I just
So
saw
congratulations to Guatemala on that. You also mentioned digitalization,
Yes.
and that's something we recently, in February, put out a 5-year strategy report on how U.S. can deepen our partnership with the region writ large, and we identified digitalization as an opportunity to really be able to facilitate greater transparency. And so I'm pleased that you mentioned that. Now, the interest on deepening the economic ties, thankfully, isn't just Guatemala's, but it's Washington's interest too. Last month, senior U.S. policymakers visited Guatemala City to host the first U.S.-Guatemala high-level economic dialogue, and fantastic that that occurred so shortly after the administration took office. I'd like to ask you to share what you see as some of the key takeaways that came out from that dialogue.
Well, one basic thing is that we all need to work in a collaborative way, not only among our offices in the public sector, but with the private sector. It sounds redundant, but not everybody sits down and talk. And something as simple as having a table where you can sit, share what you're going through, somebody else probably experiencing the same thing, and then finding the way to fixing it. And it has proven to be little advances, yes, but we are moving forward. So one key is having all of us government in line in the same message that this government is providing, and then receiving from the private sector and government officials from DC how we can correlate and integrate the collaboration from the donor community, the intentions of the private sector of investing, for example, or growing, and us being the facilitators, us meaning the government.
Yeah. What do you hope will be some of the concrete outcomes that dialogue can have? Obviously, the meeting was last month, but the meeting is just the beginning of a process, right? And so, what do you hope that process can help to achieve insofar as incentivizing stronger economic ties?
Well, right now we have hosted a couple of investor missions, and that is how things come to be tangible, that you can see. And we are working with 3 big companies that are looking into coming into Guatemala. They are in the last phase of deciding to start the investment. And I cannot say the names, but that is because of that dialogue. The fact that they saw that we are all willing to cooperate, work together, and the commitment of the government to facilitate their business. So, and we are hosting another one next week.
Yeah, fantastic.
And that is just getting us a new portfolio of investment.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a great cycle.
It is.
Very quick into the administration. Are there certain policies from our nearshoring work is very much focused on the push and pull factors, right? What can countries do, Guatemala in particular, do to pull more investment in? We were talking about the competition law, innovation policy, but also the push factors. What are things that the U.S. can do to push more investment into Guatemala? Given that, what are some policies that you think the U.S. could advance that would help to incentivize greater investment into Guatemala, and also, writ large, thinking about Guatemala as an anchor into Central America, into the region?
Yes. Well, with that specific message that you are asking me to send, we worked on, we are looking at the DR-CAFTA, how we can strengthen that agreement that we have, for example, to include digital economy and e-commerce. It's something that is being out there and people are asking for it, and it's something that probably we haven't really tapped into. And that not only motivates new companies from the U.S. to go and invest in Guatemala, but also see Guatemala as a way of going into the region. Yeah. Don't forget that Central America is a big market, both ways, right? So we also are working closely with our Mexican counterparts, because there have been some issues over there, and we have to also see that companies from the U.S. coming to Guatemala that want to do something in there, but also export to Mexico, have to be able to do that freely. And given that certainty is something that we need to sit down and really work with our Mexican authorities. And of course, infrastructure. We do need, there is not enough money, to pull together all the resources to work with the government in those public partnerships, public-private partnerships, to continue building some of the basic infrastructure that needs to happen before we can aim at bringing more investment. Because if goods cannot move freely, or the timing is not what the company needs to put the product wherever it needs to be put, then we are not competitive.
Yeah.
And infrastructure is key. So that will be something that, and I know that it has been in the agenda for President Arevalo, but also during our meetings here, is how we can promote more investment in infrastructure under a mixed figure of investment.
So three specific things that the U.S. as a partner can help to do to push more investment in Guatemala. Looking at DR-CAFTA, digital economy, e-commerce, also working with Mexico, especially opportunities through the USMCA potentially to incentivize greater cross-border flows between Mexico and Guatemala.
Definitely.
There's incredible untapped opportunity there, as well as incentivize greater infrastructure investment. And I would assume that's not just kind of roads, ports, but it's also importantly probably energy infrastructure as well.
Energy and border crossings. We are now in the process of taking over again negotiations for integration with our neighbors, El Salvador and Honduras. And just those border crossings need to have new infrastructure, connectivity, and it's a way of working also that unsaid issue, which is irregular migration.
Yeah, all incredibly important themes. Now I want to move on. Governments, of course, play a pivotal role in facilitating investment, but it's the private sector. And as you've been mentioning the private sector as well as part of your comments, the private sector that ultimately invests, being the actors that decide to ultimately relocate supply chains. So along that line of thinking, how can public-private collaboration be strengthened to leverage nearshoring investments? What are some of the opportunities that you're looking at to be able to do so?
Well, in the experience that I have had prior to joining the government is sometimes when a company is new to Guatemala and wants to come in a nearshoring figure, they don't necessarily know how business works. And local partners, local private partners, send a message, a clear message of companies in Guatemala investing in Guatemala. That also provides them with that certainty. The other thing is opening the local companies to receive nearshoring as a capital income to grow through joint ventures or mostly joint ventures. That hasn't been easy because somehow it's opening your company to another one. But it's the quickest, easiest way to grow, and we saw that with the textile industry. And it is a boom there. And working with the U.S. brands, as has been the strategy with the nearshoring in textile industry, I think that gives us the roadmap as to how Guatemala can respond specifically to what the brands are demanding from us in terms of certifications and quality processes, and that's where the government comes in. But also we learn from local companies in Guatemala, and then we hopefully everybody is going to sit down and work together because, as you said, the ones that invest are the private sector companies.
Exactly. And I would assume also part of what we've seen, and we saw this when I was with you on Valentine's Day in Guatemala recently as part of a larger conference, is the dialogue and that constant dialogue between the public sector and the private sector, and that's very important to be able to hear the concerns of the private sector insofar as what more needs to happen to facilitate greater investment. And for that to be, and for the public sector, at the same point, to be able to then take that into account insofar as the policies put forward to incentivize greater. So my impression, there's been a number of those conversations that you continue to have, the administration continues to have.
Yes, and those conversations need to happen at various levels. Technical level, mid-level, senior, but key is that the higher level understands the processes that go down and that it takes time. But if we all get together and we can figure and learn from other experiences how to expedite these processes, which is in the end what makes something happen in the timeline of a company investing in Guatemala. They come and have an agenda and a calendar of how their business plan needs to happen.
Yeah.
And one little thing that doesn't work, and it complicates, and they need to see that their investment is going to actually deliver, be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So those conversations need to happen at those three levels. We promote them from the Ministry of Economy, but we also work with partners like, of course, Fundesa, or now you,
yes.
and other institutions that are interested in having these high-level discussions and then going down. So everybody that needs to hear it is hearing it.
Yeah, it sets the message, sets the tone.
Yes.
Similar to the U.S. Guatemala, the high-level economic dialogue. You have the meeting among the higher level executives, and that sends a message across the importance of the stronger economic ties. Now, of course, we're here, and again, thank you for coming. It's such a busy week here in Washington, because we're here in the context of the World Bank IMF meetings. You also spoke at the Inter-American Development Bank this week as well. And the multilateral banks play an important role in incentivizing trade and investment in Guatemala. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, how will the administration leverage international financial institutions? What's being looked at to be able to greater leverage the IFIs to achieve the goal of deeper economic integration, deeper economic strengthening of Guatemala, and also integration not just with the U.S., but as we were speaking about earlier, with your neighbors as well, border crossings you were talking about. What are some of the opportunities that international institutions, World Bank, IDB, and others can play in helping to facilitate some of the plans of the administration?
Well, yesterday I was sitting and I was mentioning to the ambassador here that I had one meeting with the World Bank and SIECA. I don't know how to say that.
SIECA, yeah, the Central American Integration System. Yes.
There you go. And we were learning, and I said we, because there were others, about this work that they did regarding economic corridors in the region for Guatemala, Salvador, Honduras. That brings together not only an order to trade both ways, but also how infrastructure needs to be working for all of the three countries, and most of that infrastructure is where the government needs to put money on. Those are one of the incentives, but at the same time leverage that you can see from a government committing to making trade and commerce easier for the companies, but also among the region. And we learned too that 30% of what we do in Guatemala goes to Central America, of what we produce. So it's not a small number.
It's a very large number.
It is a very large number, and it's going under the current circumstances. Can you imagine if this network of roads, they were speaking about train, so there is a commitment from the IDB, the World Bank, and the SIECA to work together, and we are creating a technical discussion table. Mm-hmm. And I suggested that we needed to all talk, because we all have these different initiatives, but unless we talk, we are going to continue working separately. And there is a great disposition to do that. And then that serves as leverage to the private sector by having these coordinated efforts with the donor community.
In addition to those specific conversations as part of your week here, I'd be interested in your first IMF World Bank meeting as Minister of Economy. You're back in Washington, not as a American University student, but you're back here as minister as well. Mm-hmm. What's been your impression of the week, and what do you think have been some of the larger results that have been achieved, and what else would you like to see achieved in meetings such as this?
Well, on the one hand, is personally and professionally, it's been great to go back to the IDB. I used to work there when I was studying. So I had the opportunity to go and sit down in a couple efforts that we are also promoting from the ministry, which is financial inclusion. It's very important.
Very important. Very important.
And how to promote gender equity, and equality. So those two things are very close to my heart, but also is part of what we have to do and are working already on doing from the ministry in the Vice Minister of Small and Medium Enterprise. So the IDB is very clear on having those two prioritized initiatives. As for the World Bank, that was my first experience with them, and they are looking more into the digitalization of processes and sustainable investment for energy, clean energy, water and sanitation. So I think the fact that we have narrowed all the commitments of collaboration to very specific points is very important, because we are not going in different places. We have very key roads to work on.
It's precisely, it seems like this week has helped to further identify that very clear roadmap for Guatemala, both insofar as how to attract more investment and also how to work with the international financial institutions to be able to do so, and be able to do so, as we talked about in the beginning, in a way that brings equitable growth, right? It's one thing, it's important to bring investment, but also how does that investment help to ultimately benefit the lives of everyday Guatemalans, which I know is very important to the administration.
Yes, and I would like to add that this morning we are just coming from a dialogue on democracy with USAID and representatives of different governments in the UN, and it was very inspiring to see how they are using Guatemala as an example of what it takes to keep working on sustaining a democracy, because it's key. For any economic development, we need to be able to show that a democracy delivers.
Exactly.
Right? And we have 3 months on this democracy now, but we are delivering specific things, like first of all is getting an order to how we're going to work together with the private sector and the international community, and securing a portfolio of investments. If we want to go that specific, and actually receiving the business people coming to Guatemala, meeting at the highest level with the president and of course members of the ministry and myself all this time, to secure and make sure that they have a good experience, but also that they have the trust that this is definitely a country working on its democracy basis, but at the same time we have to deliver. That means more trade and commerce.
And I assume as you think about delivering, you're thinking about what needs to be delivered in 6 months, what needs to be delivered in a year, what needs to be delivered in a few years down the road, and having that timeline insofar as what can be achieved at different points.
Yes, we hope that this year we're going to close at least with 15 millones. I don't know how to say that in English. 1,500 million in foreign direct investment. That's the portfolio we are looking at now. Keeping growth probably is going to stay the same. 3.5 is what we suspect. But if we set the basis for this, next year we can aim at 2,000 million. Those millones?
Those millones. You're getting me as well on converting it this time.
Yes.
But you're looking at a sizable increase a sizable increase in investment.
Foreign direct investment. Sorry for my mix up in Spanish and English, but we have those goals, and for that is this year is key. And I'll end by saying you can count on the Atlantic Council, the work we're doing through our nearshoring working group and other efforts through Central America writ large, to be able to accelerate even stronger U.S.-Guatemala ties, and also accelerate the importance of Guatemala as a key partner in Central America writ large, and not only those ties, but how do we turn the rhetoric into reality, which is a real focus of our nearshoring work in particular, insofar as incentivizing greater economic opportunities, greater investment that ultimately helps both countries, helps the region, and ultimately helps the people of Guatemala as well. So, Mr. Garcia, thank you so much again for coming to the Atlantic Council at the end of such a busy week, and wonderful to have you here, and look forward to seeing you in Guatemala as well sometime soon. Definitely.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.